Okay, so just to get started, if you could first just introduce yourself and your role within the UNHCR representation in Germany.
Of course. My name is Chris Melzer. I am for 3 years now the German spokesperson of UNHCR, and UNHCR is the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees. And I'm working in Berlin, but have sometimes also missions to other parts of the world. For example, I spent some time in Bangladesh.
So obviously not all UNHCR regions are the same in terms of focus. How could you just discuss your unique region as the largest refugee hosting country in the EU and how that affects your main mission and main focus?
Germany is indeed a very interesting country. If you take the list of the countries who support UNHCR with money, you find there are only Western countries, mostly EU countries, plus Japan, South Korea, Australia, and New Zealand, and first and foremost the United States, who's the biggest donor for UNHCR. And Germany is the second bilateral donor, smaller than the US, definitely, but it's a very important supporter of our work. When you take the list of countries who host refugees, then this is normally the direct neighborhood of the crises, because 85% of all refugees are located in the direct neighbor, they fled to the direct neighbor country in the hope to come back home soon. So that's why the biggest host countries are countries like Turkey, Pakistan, Sudan, and Bangladesh. But on number 5, there's Germany. So this is unique that industrialized Western country is in this list of the biggest host countries, and this gives Germany a special credibility because they are not just supporting with money; they know what they are talking about. Germany is now hosting 1.14 million refugees. This is a lot. Yeah, again, this gives Germany a special credibility, and that's why our job in Germany of UNHCR is also very important. Of course, it's a small office we have. We have only 13 or 14 people working with us because we're not working directly with refugees, because we don't give out food or there are no refugee camps in Germany, of course. But anyway, our job is very important here in Berlin. You are muted.
So Germany is also at the forefront of the implementation of the Global Compact on Refugees. How has that compact changed the work that you do, and how does that continue to influence the work that you do on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah. We hope that the GRF has a big impact, especially with countries, with societies, even with individuals who are not now really engaged with refugees. The idea behind this is to level the burden, because refugees are on the one hand an enrichment. We can see that every day, but of course they are also kind of a burden. It takes time, money, effort to integrate people who fled their home country. And unfortunately, I already mentioned that figure. Most of the refugees now are living in direct neighboring countries, so countries we call sometimes third world countries. And by the way, about 80% of refugees are in areas who are affected by malnutrition. We hope that states and societies who are not engaged yet in the help of refugees can do more. It also has an effect in Germany. To give a very concrete example, and many companies in Germany, big companies like Deutsche Bahn, the railway company here, one of the biggest employer in Germany, or the Deutsche Post and DHL, also a German company now. They're very engaged in giving refugees education, internships, and jobs.
So adding on to that, the collaboration that you just talked about with big companies in Germany, what are the other sorts of collaborations that you form, and what are their different purposes?
Well, especially in Germany, we see there is the triangle of integration out of speaking the language, having friends, having a job. If you have these three things, you see, I'm European, I'm counting that way and not that way. These three things are so important to be integrated. You can't really be integrated if you have no German friends or friends in your home country, wherever you are. Not in your home country, in your host country, of course. The language is the other thing. How can you be integrated in a country where you don't speak the language? And a job is, of course, so important to gain enough money for you to be autonomous. The other problem is you learn the language best when you have a job or friends. You have friends only when you speak the language, and it's easier when you have a job, and you only find a job when you speak the language. So these three things are so important. And what we are trying is to help Germany. Germany itself is doing a very good job, of course, but we are also trying to help to make clear how important that is, probably also by monitoring the German integration programs and giving their probably advices where, from our point of view, probably they could change something and can do better.
So a large focus of the UNHCR, as you said, you don't directly work with refugees that much because they're in neighboring countries. A large focus is advocacy. So how important is advocacy for you, and what mechanisms do you use to gain public support and teach the public about refugees?
This is extremely important because we are not just a relief, we are not a relief organization like, let's say, Red Cross, Médecins Sans Frontières and Oxfam or something. We are indeed one of the biggest relief organizations, but we have also the other part of our job, what we call protection, so the political part of our job. This is the main job of our colleagues here in Germany, that we are in instant talking with the federal government, with the federal parliament, and also with the governments and parliaments of the 16 German federal states, where we try to give advice how laws, how regulations should be shaped to get the best out of it. Not only the best for the refugees, also the best for the home country, for the host country, so here Germany. Because you can use the potential refugees have. But of course, we are also, for example, Germany has the Federal Authority for Migrants and Refugees. This is a huge authority located in Nuremberg, but with many outlets all over Germany. We are, for example, we are in this authority in Nuremberg, also watching their daily work. And we don't have to do that very often, but of course it is also our job sometimes to raise our finger, to raise our hand, saying that this is, from our point of view, not the perfect solution. Let's take, for example, family reunification. Here in Germany, from our point of view, the German law is a step forward, but it's a quite complicated law, and it has also a cap of 1,000 people per month. And we made clear with the federal government that this is, from our point of view, not the best solution.
So in regard to advocacy and influencing the government, the question I always ask is, going deeper, what do you think the core transition is that we as the public need to make, and also figures in government, in regard to how we look at refugees on a global scale and also locally?
Could you just, I have a little problem with the connection. Just a second, please.
No problem.
Okay, would you be so kind to repeat your question? Excuse me.
Sure. So in regard to advocacy, kind of going deeper, the question I always ask is, what do we as the public and also figures in government need to change in the way that we look at refugees on a global scale and also locally?
Yeah. So when it comes to the very high level, so when we talk about governments and parliaments, societies in the whole, I think states like the US and Germany should remain open-minded and open. With open, I don't mean open your gate, let everybody in. Of course not. I mean, we're talking about refugees, not migrants. We're talking about people who were forced to flee and not decided under what conditions ever, decided on their own to leave their country. But refugees, we have the Geneva Refugee Convention from 1951, and Germany has signed these convention, and that's why Germany is obliged to protect refugees. But we also want that Germany is seeing not only the jural obligation to protect refugees, also the moral obligation. And we are quite sure that Germany is absolutely aware of that. They don't need us for that. In the society, we see, especially in Germany, very, very big support for refugees. Yes, every day you can see in German newspapers reader comments like, we have our own problems, we don't need these people, and they only cost money. Are these real refugees? But when there are opinion polls, for example, and by the way, also the elections, then you can see this is only a tiny minority. 2/3 and more of the Germans are really supporting the cause of the refugees. This is very empowering for us. And I would just say to the German society, keep that thinking. Don't be uncritical. It is absolutely fine to ask questions like, is that good for the society? Can we afford that? From my point of view, the answers are yes. But again, keep your open mind and keep your solidarity with people who are in need. Right now, we can see that the Germans are doing exactly this.
So in regard to that, to promoting that advocacy, I was talking to your colleague in the UNHCR representation in Northern Europe, and she was talking about how they use virtual reality technology to draw in children and also adults to learn about refugee situations in an immersive and fun way. What role does technology play in your work? How has it expanded opportunities? And are there any unique technologies that you think have special potential moving forward?
We are using virtual digital advisors as well, but to be honest, not very often. We are a small office, and sometimes we are on events like open door events of authorities of the federal government and so on, where we can meet hundreds or even thousands of people. And then we have our virtual devices to show people two movies we have about the everyday life in a refugee camp. And it's intriguing to see that quite often when the people, after I think it's 7 minutes in the movie, when they take the glasses off, that many of them, also men, have tears in their eyes. This is a very good way just to break down this big number of 79.5 million refugees and asylum seekers and internal displaced persons to one individual. So that's why these technique is very important for us. Unfortunately, not in the last month because there are no these events due to Corona. But we are using this. The most important technical devices, if you like, for us, it's still are the social media channels, especially Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. And we're using more and more films there. This is a good thing with UNHCR. We are almost everywhere. We are in 132 countries in the world. And we can ask our colleagues in South Sudan or in Venezuela or in let's say Bangladesh or something, can you produce a little movie for us? And we can see how popular that is, that we can really catch the attention of many people.
So not everything is smooth sailing. Can you just describe the any pushback that you faced, either implicit or explicit, from any number of sources, and the major obstacles that you faced in implementing your work?
Well, you mean for our from our PR work or UNHCR work itself in general in Germany?
In general, in Germany.
In general, yeah. Yeah, I already mentioned that with the family reunification, when you are a refugee, then you have the right that your core family can follow. But many of the refugees, especially the Syrians, and Syrians is exactly 50% of the 1.14 million refugees we have in Germany, they are what they call subsidiary protected. So they are not refugees under the Geneva Refugee Convention for Germany, although they have almost the same rights and the same privileges in Germany. Almost. One of them is no family reunification, or at least no automatic family reunification. This is these 1,000 places per month, so 12,000 per year. This is not very much. And we try to, why not using the word fight, that Germany has opened up these numbers, at least takes a higher number, or as it would be even better to have no lid there, no cut there. And we were not able to do that because the political pressure is, of course, also in Germany very big to control and to maintain the control about the borders and so on. We were unfortunately not successful at that point.
So a large goal of this series is to inspire youth and inform youth about people like wanting to enter this field. So more specifically about you, how did you get interested in this field? So what drew you in initially, and then also what path did you take to get to the position you were in?
Well, to answer the last question first, I'm with the UNHCR for 3 years now. For most of my life, I was a journalist, a foreign correspondent, also in New York, for example, as a UN correspondent. And that's why I saw a lot of refugee camps before I joined UNHCR. Of course, more as a guest or something, as a journalist, and not really behind the scenes. And when I returned to Germany and there was this job opening with UNHCR, I applied and they accepted me. I was very happy about that. The number one, I wanted to work for UNHCR for maybe my whole, for the United Nations for almost my whole life. And UNHCR is especially interesting because it has also these political component. It's not, as I mentioned, just a relief organization. It has also this political thing. This is very, very intriguing and excellent for me. The other thing is I'm a little how can I say that, influenced by the story of a young refugee girl. She was 9 years old when she had to flee the war together with her two sisters and her mother. The father was in the war, and she was almost shot. She had nothing, only one little doll. Her mother made that out of a stock, and she lost the doll, and that was the biggest disaster for her childhood, even worse than the thing that she was almost shot. And this little girl, she's not from Syria or Iraq or something like that. She's from Germany, because I'm talking about my mother, 75 years ago. My mother is now 84 years old, and she is still haunted by this experience. And I can't really have my mother anymore, because again, this is 75 years ago, but there are a lot of other 9-year-old girls out there, and also 9-year-old boys, and even younger children and older children and grown-ups who need our help. And I'm unfortunately not a doctor and not an engineer. So with the possibilities I have, I want to use them, although they are very limited.
Okay, so just to wrap this up, going further into that, as young people, what do you think young people can be working on and doing right now to help the situation for refugees and also to prepare them for a possible interest in this field in the future?
Well, the most important thing when you have refugees in your neighborhood, just talk to them, communicate. And you will see, number one, normally problems are not really problems. They are quite often just misunderstandings. And what is left and what are real problems that can be very often solved by communicating, by finding compromises. And on the other hand, on the other hand, it's wrong. One more thing is just put yourself in the shoes of the refugees. You don't just taking them by the hand and ask, what are your needs? And I don't talk about material needs. I don't talk about money or whatever, and not even a apartment or something like that. But sometimes it's just good to have someone, a guide, and a potential friend in a new world. And this is a great way where everybody can help a refugee, actually for almost no costs. If you have the potential to go to typical refugee situation to help there as a doctor or something like that, that would be great and excellent, and I can only appreciate that. But not everybody of us has the skills and the time, and probably has a family who you have to take care of. But with these humble things, you can help people who are strangers a lot. And of course, just when you are a supporter of refugees, say it out loud. The others are very loud and not always very factual. That's why it can only help if you just say sometimes, no, I think we should protect refugees.